Hey folks, so it's been a very interesting week in politics, and please don't turn off at the word politics, because what's going on is very, very interesting indeed. And I'm on here today to challenge Rishi's statement, Sunak, that democracy is under threat, because having had a year's quite intense experience, well over a year actually, quite intense experience of dealing with the political system and the electoral commission, standing for election, navigating the extensive and complicated rules and regulations which govern these things. I'm here to question that statement, because as far as I can see, politics is like a walled city. I'll just get through this gate. Hold on. Politics is like a walled city, and you can only get inside this walled city if you either have a shed load of money or you can find clever and powerful ways to scale the walls or to tunnel the walls. And that's exactly what George Galloway did at last week's Rochdale by-election.
Keir Starmer, this is for Gaza. You have paid and you will pay a high price for the role that you have played in enabling, encouraging and covering for the catastrophe presently going on in occupied Palestine in the Gaza Strip. I want to tell Mr. Starmer above all that the plates have shifted tonight. And as Jacob Rees-Mogg just said on television, in talking of me as a parliamentary orator of note, that Keir Starmer's problems just got 100 times more serious than they were before today. This is going to spark a movement, a landslide, a shifting of the tectonic plates in scores of parliamentary constituencies, beginning here in the North West, in the West Midlands, in London, from Ilford to Bethnal Green and Bow. Labour is on notice that they have lost the confidence of millions of their voters who loyally and traditionally voted for them generation after generation. I've heard some of the narrative being spun around this election result this evening. Yes, it's true that every Muslim is bitterly angry at Keir Starmer and his misnamed Labour Party. But you would be very foolish if you did not realise that millions of other citizens of our country are too.
But it wasn't just George Galloway that swept the board. I think he got 8,000 votes or something. But the person who came second was a guy, I think his name's Dave Tully, just a local independent businessman who was standing on the desire to save Rochdale Football Club, which is on the brink of administration.
Finally, I congratulate David Tully on his remarkable achievement. His remarkable achievement in coming second in this by-election, and trust that even the most biased journalist in the room will realise that this is the first time ever in British political history that the two big parties of the state were thoroughly and soundly beaten. Yes. And I think that will not have been missed in Downing Street and wherever Keir Starmer currently hangs out.
Now, Labour had withdrawn their candidate on the basis that he was an anti-Semite. It seems to me that anyone who speaks out against the genocide in Palestine is smeared as an anti-Semite and kind of put down the bad egg shoot. Well, I think these political parties, and as George Galloway said in his acceptance speech, they both Conservative Party and Labour Party are two cheeks of the same backside.
Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak are two cheeks of the same backside, and they both got well and truly spanked tonight here in Rochdale.
I mean, I've been saying that too in my videos. They're both wings of the same vampire, that they're both aligned to the World Economic Forum, they're both aligned to big corporate interests, and guess what? Those big corporate interests are the backers, they're the ones with the money that support these political parties. Now, of course, all of the media is now owned pretty much by World Economic Forum aligned big corporations. It's completely dominating the storylines. I mean, just look at what happened. Rishi Sunak appearing from Number 10, doing trying to be presidential, doing this emergency speech outside of Number 10. And what it was doing, it was pushing George Galloway off the front pages, giving the newspapers, the snooze papers, an opportunity to fill their front page with Rishi Sunak and the message that democracy is under threat, rather than having to run with the story of George Galloway winning this by-election, and by the way, a totally unknown independent coming second, with the Conservative Party completely demolished into third place with, I think, just 3,000 votes or something.
In recent weeks and months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality. And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP.
I'm standing here at George Galloway's campaign headquarters. George Galloway, did you just watch the Prime Minister's speech?
I didn't watch it, but I understood the first part of it related to the Rochdale by-election.
The Prime Minister has just said that the election of you to Parliament is beyond horrifying. What do you say to that?
Well, I can understand how disappointed he is about the by-election. The Conservative Party, which is the government of the country, was crushed, not just by me, but by an independent candidate that no one had ever heard of before outside of Rochdale. So it was a disastrous night for the Conservatives and a disastrous night for Labour. I got more votes than Labour and the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats and the Reform Party put together, which adds up to a pretty crushing rejection of the two-party system. So I understand why he's alarmed.
I want you to address some of the specifics that the Prime Minister said about you this evening. He said that you backed Hezbollah. Is that true?
I don't know what that means, backed Hezbollah. I oppose Israel's occupation of Lebanon, and I respect the right of people in occupied territory to resist their occupier. And I've done so since Hezbollah was formed and Israel occupied much of Lebanon, right up to the Litani River, regularly bombing Beirut and so on. So I'm not sure what business that is of his, because you see,
Hezbollah are a terrorist organisation.
Actually, they're part of the government of Lebanon, a country with which we have sovereign diplomatic relations. I had this debate with Sky's Anna Botting in 2006. It's quite an epic clip. You should watch it. More than 100 million people have. They said all these things about me in the by-election. And in the by-election, it was them that got crushed in the democratic process. So I'm not sure why he would reheat it now.
The Prime Minister is saying
talk
that
as
you
if
are...
this is God. We're talking about little Rishi Sunak in the fag end of his prime ministership. Don't talk to me as if he's come down from the mount with tablets of stone. The things that he says are somehow meant to awe me. They may awe you, they don't awe me.
A lot of people have just watched what the Prime Minister said. This is your opportunity to respond to what he said.
Well,
he says that there are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. He is implying you are a divisive figure. You have run an election campaign that has tried to appeal particularly, not entirely, to one section of the community.
Who won the election? Me or Rishi Sunak? I've got the Democratic mandate here, not Rishi Sunak. He didn't even come second. He was lucky to come third. So don't put to me statements made by Rishi Sunak as if I'm supposed to be impressed by them. He don't impress me much.
We at Sky have spent some time today on the streets of Rochdale, and there are people who say that they feel intimidated by people like you and the people that have supported you.
I have just
and they have pointed out that you have concentrated your campaign on foreign affairs, and they worry that Rochdale will not be the winner.
That's my answer to you. I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people in the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Why are there people on the streets worried?
There may be people who didn't vote for me who are worried, but the majority, the thumping majority, voted for me. I've got the mandate, and I'm going to the House of Commons with it.
And it's a mandate, you think, to do what? Because there are people that listen to what you say about whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening slogans.
We had this conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's
Don't keep
statement.
telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
Do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister. And guess what? Guess what? Millions and millions and millions of people in this country despise the Prime Minister. I don't respect the Prime Minister at all.
What are you planning to do next week when you arrive in Parliament?
Well, I'm meeting the Speaker on Monday morning, and then I'll be introduced and sworn in. I'll be escorted by the Right Honourable David Davis MP, former Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party. I don't know why he would do that if he thought I was the kind of man you're clearly implying that I am. David Davis is one of the great parliamentarians of today and this age. And I'll be taking my seat in the House of Commons and speaking for the people of Rochdale. That's what I was elected to do.
And what is your message also to Keir Starmer?
My message to Keir Starmer is that the skids are under you in scores of Labour seats up and down the country, because you've lost the trust, you've lost the confidence of millions of your traditional loyal voters.
Now we have now had an election where two of the candidates have alleged intimidation. The Prime Minister referenced that intimidation in his address on the steps of...
to the Prime Minister as if that's supposed to impress me. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister is a rather diminutive, diminished and degraded politician. He made a party political statement. I don't care about Rishi Sunak's attitude. What I care about is that the returning officer, a man of unimpeachable integrity, I'm sure you'll agree, declared it a free and fair election, and me as the winner, and Rishi Sunak as one of the crushed two big parties in the state.
So why are two candidates?
Keep repeating the same questions to me because I have other people to talk to. So let's make this the last one, shall we?
We got a party to deal with.
Allegations of intimidation, allegations that your supporters intimidated other candidates.
What times you've said that? The returning officer declared it last night. You were there as a free and fair election and me as the winner.
And the Electoral Commission today have said that they're going to look and talk to the parties.
You have to just suck it up. I won the election.
George Galloway, thank you very much indeed. That was George Galloway with his supporters now shouting bye-bye. Live on Sky News with his first reaction to the address by the Prime Minister. You can see some of the reaction to the way that George Galloway has responded to the Prime Minister's speech, to that extraordinary Friday night address on the steps of Downing Street. And you can see some of the atmosphere that I think the people of Rochdale have experienced themselves during this by-election over the last few days.
Whistle politics from our establishment politicians.
And you can see the febrile atmosphere and the anger in this room about an hour before a rally, a victory party for George Galloway's election is due to start. And you can hear the raw emotion addressed at other politicians and at others that criticise them. I think you've got in this room a flavour of the politics right now in Rochdale that this constituency has been witnessing for the last few weeks. This will, I think this, and you can see the way. And that, I think, sums up some of the campaigning that we have seen in Rochdale over the last few weeks.
I mean, it was a complete whitewash. Keir Starmer's bleating, well, we would have won if we'd run a candidate. But he didn't run a candidate. And this is the problem with the Labour Party. I mean, look at what they did to Jeremy Corbyn, smearing him as an anti-Semite. No, these people, they're humanitarian. They're standing up for the rights of the people. And we can all see that what's happening in Palestine is genocide. So going back to running for election, it's really interesting. I've announced and made very public and just run an election campaign locally stating that I am running as East Midlands Mayor in the 2nd of May. Elections coming up, the combined county authority, this new regional mayor that they're creating. I've made that very, very public, and yet hustings have already been held to which I was not invited. Now, if you look at the rules on hustings, if you declare a hustings, and anyone can organise a hustings, I could organise a hustings. If you declare a hustings and you invite all of the candidates, then it isn't an election campaign expense. But you can organise a hustings and just include yourself or a selection of candidates and exclude other candidates, and then as long as you have got the money to pay for it and you can declare it as an election campaign expense, then, you know, fill your boots. And so the system is incredibly unfair. I mean, I just went through the Bakewell by-election. Labour won it. The guy had a whole team out on polling day going around people's houses offering them lifts to the polling station. He did 2 entire leaflet drops with a whole team supporting him. And it's like, if you've got unlimited funds, you can just throw money at it. And yes, there are upper limits, but they're not necessarily within the reach of independent candidates like myself. So, and also bear in mind that the mainstream media is completely aligned to the mainstream parties. So if you're an independent, you're not going to get any coverage unless it's a smear. So that is the reality of democracy in Britain. I'm going to cross the road, hold on. So I think the one thing that Rochdale showed is that people are getting wise to the red and blue punch and Judy show politics of the past decades, where you have Labour in power for a decade or so, starts out really well, ends up with everything completely crashed and the people having to bail out and go under austerity measures to bail out the bankers. Oh, and then Conservatives sail in, oh yeah, David Cameron's going to save the day. And here we are down the line with the cost of living crisis Kelly Slade likened it to like a shoal of fish in a lake, and the water's slowly being drained out from that lake. There's been the biggest transfer of wealth from the poorest people to the richest people during the past few years, and particularly during the COVID years where everything suddenly went online. A lot of independent businesses were destroyed as a result, and I think they were deliberately destroyed. I spoke out about that very strongly at the time and got lambasted and lampooned, but I could see what was going on. It was atrocious what was done to the people, and the destruction and devastation of lives, the devastation of independent businesses, our children, the mental health, the health of people. So all of these things are coming home to roost now. And another interesting thing that happened last week was that suddenly the MPs are starting to question the MHRA. Why didn't you tell us there was a problem with these jabs? And calling for an inquiry. June Rain, who is the chief executive of the MHRA, suddenly decides that she's going to retire and resign after 5 years of very worthy service, trying to quietly slip out the back door. Well, I did a video called 21st Century Nuremberg Trials back in February 2021 as this was breaking, and I featured quantitative analysis by the UK column which showed the statistics of the upturn in deaths following the jab rollout. I also featured qualitative information read out by Dr. Vernon Coleman of all of the press stories of people who are dying suddenly immediately after the jabs. So in that video, I asked people to write to June Rain, amongst others, to hold them personally accountable and to write to their MPs. The other person who is liable is Dr. June Rain, CBE. She is the acting chief executive, the interim chief executive of the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, the MHRA, and they are at 10 South Colonnade, Canary Wharf, London, E14 4PU. Also, there is an email address, info@mhra.gov.uk, where if you put FAO June Rain in the title, your email will get to her. I was assured by someone on the switchboard there this morning. And that is, of course, in addition to writing to your MP and making them personally responsible, as well as perhaps writing to Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock. We are at a situation now, people, where this is the Achilles heel. It's important that we have decisive, focused action. This is now in breach of the Nuremberg Code. There have to be Nuremberg trials of the 21st century to bring those to account for what is going on. And we, the people who you act for, you are public servants. And you are servants to us, the public. We demand action, we demand honesty, we demand an immediate cessation of this experimental genetic engineering injection program, and we want scientific proof for everything that has unfolded over the past year. We also want reparations for the damage caused to small businesses and livelihoods as a result of the lockdowns and everything that has gone on, including all medical injury, all deaths, and all damages which have been created by this government and all of the official agencies who have gone along with it. That video had almost 75,000 views before it was removed by Google for medical misinformation. So luckily, my YouTube channel is backed up to Odyssey, so you can still watch that video, and I'll put it in the link to the below this video. Come on, Kobe, we're going this way now. Headed to Stand in the Park. I'm doing this on the hoof, walking Kobe. He's not happy that his walk is being curtailed, but I've had a busy morning. I've been up since 6:30 going to Buxton, filling all the water bottles. Anyway, I digress. So You can still watch that video on Odyssey, and therefore I know it is impossible for June Rain or the MPs to claim that somehow they were not aware of what was unfolding. So had this been nipped in the bud back in February 2021, had all of those early yellow card adverse report early warning alarm bells been listened to, this could have been stopped. But they didn't. They continued, and they mandated it, and they said no jab, no job, and they said you can't travel, you can't come into this shop without a jab, you can't do this without a jab, you can't do that without a jab. And bear in mind, these were experimental, not yet fully tested, genetic engineering. They were not vaccines in the traditional sense of the word. So what has happened is scandalous. So this is all starting to break now, folks. It's all starting to break, and there's only a matter of time before the lid blows on this. Much as the mainstream media have been trying very hard to silence people like me and delete the content of people like me and smear people like me, people like Andrew Bridgen, booted out of the Conservative Party, he's now a free voice to speak, and it's great, because when you don't have the party whip, you don't have to be fearful of being chucked out for speaking your truth. And so what we're seeing is the red and blue Punch and Judy show disintegrating, and I really hope that the people make a decision at the next general election, and it surely has to be soon, that they will abandon the red and blue Punch and Judy show, and they will vote in independent candidates who are true representatives of the people and who can break this cartel, because that's what it is. And so it's not about mob rule. This is about the people standing in their power and using the ballot box to express their dissatisfaction with the shit show which is currently going on. Because Rishi Sunak is dancing to the tune of his corporate overlords. He's dancing to the tune of money. And who controls the money? Well, this isn't an anti-Semitic statement, but it is linked to Israel, that is for sure. Anyway, here I am. We're standing in the park. Here is the Easter cross, and quite fittingly, our prayer is for world peace. That's what this is about, folks. That's why George Galloway won in Rochdale. People have lost faith in the system. They can see through it now. They want representatives who will truly listen to them and represent them, and not just be bully boys to bulldoze through all of the whims of the big corporations which truly run the show. So on that note, just once again to put out the call, I am going to stand as East Midlands Mayor. The gates don't actually open until the 6th of March officially. It's a very, very tight window, and they do it deliberately. Also, the general election will be declared. It will be a snap election for sure, giving a minimal amount of time for people to get their shit together. So I really would appreciate your support. I'm going to stand as MP for Derbyshire Dales, stand for election as an independent for both of those roles. It's so important that we have independent people in politics that can be a voice for the people and not for these big corporations and the red and blue Punch and Judy show. So I'm hoping that what happened in Rochdale will give you faith that it is possible for independent candidates to come out of nowhere and sweep the board. So please do support me if you can. I've had some donations up to date, but I've barely reached £300. I mean, already the local council election cost me probably getting on for 500. So it does cost money to stand for election, and I don't have the big corporate backing. So obviously I'm going to put whatever money I can into it, but I'm not, despite allusions to the contrary, I'm not a multi-millionaire rich dragon anymore. I am just a woman of the people and doing my best as one of those fish in the pond which is being drained of water. And so if you can support me, if you can send anything, even a fiver, it would be really, really appreciated. And I just have to trust. I've got to go for it and trust that all the resources I need will magically manifest. And I'm just handing this one over. So sending you lots of love, and bye for now. Stand in the park. Hey, people arriving.